Hey everyone, welcome to the Invisible Side of Success. And today I want to share some of the lessons that I've learned from my mentor, Bob Proctor. He's recently just passed away, 87. But there's so many lessons that I've learned that's really helped me in really turning my life around. So a bit about my background. I really got into this coaching and become a consultant for Bob Proctor about 3 years back, and prior to that I had reached rock bottom. I basically was finding myself working in financial planning, working in banking, and I just had this feeling that I just couldn't stand working 9 to 5 and doing that and missing out on my kids growing up. My ex, at that time, as soon as we got married, he basically set up a bakery. We bought a bakery, and he was working 20-hour shifts, sometimes hardly sleeping and going on to the next day. And we were in property development, not property development. We purchased, properties, did them up, and turned them over, flipped them, and I was working full time. I didn't see myself as someone I could be working at the bakery, helping them out, standing behind the counter. Because for me, it's kind of like, I studied all these things. How can I be standing behind the counter and just selling bread? And, there's nothing bad about that. It's just that I thought that my path of going to school was to get a good job and then continue that and basically just work for the rest of my life. But somehow, life was just chaotic, and he was working long hours. I was working in corporate and studying in the evening, and our baby daughter was being looked after by my parents. My mum basically looked after my daughter, raised her for the first few years, and we only saw her on the weekend. And so, there was this whole hustle thing, and we were just chasing money, and nothing. Everything looked like good outside. We had all these, our net worth was increasing and everything, but inside it was just so empty, and I felt really empty. And so the relationship broke up, and I decided to, my ex trusted me enough to sell everything because he was just so busy, sell all the investment properties, split the money. And I decided to take the money, invested into a business venture in China, and basically I lost it all. And my new partner and I, we basically started rock bottom, had to rent. And I was very angry. I was very frustrated. I was feeling a lot of shame and embarrassment at the same time because I felt as if I was a failure. I had to start again. And at that time, I was just asking myself, what went wrong? And why am I, finding myself in this situation? And so I was looking for a lot of answers. I did a lot of personal development. I enrolled in a lot of programs, spent a huge amount of money, got into further debt. And I was just searching, I was just looking. And I knew there was something out there. I knew there was much more that had caused me to come to this situation. And through that process, I found a lot of mentors. And I went to one of Bob Proctor's seminars, and it really just suddenly just woke me up to a lot of conditioning, and I could see that I was basically a sum of all the thoughts that I had accumulated, passed down from genes and passed down from my parents, the upbringing that I had. And suddenly it just woke me up, and I became really fascinated and learned that, oh, wow, you are the sum of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And then you can actually change your thoughts, feelings, and actions and become new again. So this whole process of unlearning, letting go of the conditioning and reconditioning yourself. And I was just blown away. And he shared something very profound, and he said that we are spirit. We are not just a physical body. Like, there is a part of us that is enduring, and no matter what happens, it continues to endure. And it was just mind-blowing, the information that I learned from him. So even though Bob's transitioned to the next phase of his life, we know that his spirit is still here with us. And when spirit is here, I want to explain that, everything is energy. And energy is neither created or destroyed. When you go through science, theology, whatever it is, they call it, spirit, right? So, hi Sheldon, thanks for joining us. So energy is neither created or destroyed, and it's either moving from one form to the next. So everything that we see around us, we think that it is, solid, but really it's not. Even a rock itself is brought back down to the lowest, the smallest particles. And it's made of atoms, and it is moving. It is not solid, right? It's moving. Like, you probably, go back to basic chemistry, and you know that, you have, hydrogen, two hydrogen, and you create an oxygen, you create water. Two hydrogen and oxygen becomes water. And so everything, comes down to minute particles, and everything is vibrating. And the vibration creates a frequency. And we as humans, right, we basically use words to describe that frequency. So the frequency that the phone is on, we call this an iPhone, right? The chair that you're sitting in, we call that a chair. And the laptop that you have in front of you, right, that frequency, we call it the laptop. But everything brought down is energy. And we are made of, of energy as well. And so this energy is neither created or destroyed, which means that everything that we see around us has been here since the beginning of time. It's either just, moved from one form to the next and being recycled, and then, moved one form to the next. And so if you think about that, it's kind of like mind-blowing. Imagine what that means of who we are in terms of spirit. We're not created or destroyed, and we've been here since the beginning of time, and we're made of the same particles as this cosmic universe. If you think about it, it's really mind-blowing, right? So there is this enduring part of us that is always here. And we are part of this greater cosmic force, this whole thing, this fabric of life, whatever is around us. And if nothing's been created or destroyed, that means that everything that we need to create the reality that we want is also here. It's either in a different form, right? So I'm going to be explaining about the manifestation process, how everything starts from spirit, and then we involve the intellectual faculties, and then it turns and moves into a physical form. But here's the thing, everything was created twice, first in the mind before it was created into reality. So, Steve Jobs had this vision of the phone before it became a phone, iPhone. So this computer, this Apple computer was also a vision in somebody's mind. This, pen was also somebody's vision before it became a reality. So I want you to think about, we're talking about this, the invisible side of success. We've been so conditioned to think of things and trusting and believing in things that we see before we can believe. But if you were to understand this, and everything is energy, everything is either here in one form or another, it just means that it's either in a spiritual form or it's just, going through the intellectual form before it becomes a physical form. So why don't you think about the life that you want to create right now? And I want you to think about the first form. And do you have a clear vision of that life that you want? Because whatever you want to create first has to be a vision in your mind. Has to be first a vision in your mind before it becomes a physical reality. So I want to take you through the Secret Genie diagram that Bob teaches, and to take you through that so that you can start to see yourself and understand, whenever you're manifesting something, what is the steps. And I'm going to be talking about why affirmations don't work. If you're struggling with affirmations, what do you need to do so that you can actually, start believing in the affirmation, so that you can bring it and make it into a form in a concrete way, to bring it from the spirit to the physical. So I'm going to switch the camera over to the whiteboard. Right? Okay. So, did I hit the foot? Yes, I did. So over here, so this is what Bob calls the stick person, and he also calls it the secret genie. Right? So we have a secret genie that's within us, and basically this diagram was created in 1964 by a gentleman called Dr. Sermon Fleet. He was a chiropractor practicing in San Antonio, Texas. And he said that, because people are dealing with, sickness, disease, but they're not dealing with the root cause, they're not going to the root cause. And he says that the root cause of any ailments in the body was in the mind. And so to cure the body, then you have to go and understand what the mind is. You have to go into the mind, which is the cause. And so there is this beautiful picture that Bob uses throughout his teachings. And, this really, really helped me to actually start to understand who I was, who I am, and what, where I am when I'm thinking, and so that I can actually, fine tune and tweak myself so that I can, start to really align myself to the things that I really want. And then I'll talk about some of the laws that are in play. So this is a person, like this represents our mind, larger circle represents our mind. And there are two parts to the mind. There is a conscious mind, right? The conscious mind is the thinking mind. And then you have the subconscious mind. And this is the feeling part of us, the emotional mind, right? So this is where we feel. So, in some sciences, they explain a lot more, like two features what the mind is, but, Bob likes to keep it simple. So there's two parts of the mind. So for the moment, the conscious mind basically is hooked up to the senses, what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. So that basically brings information from outside into our consciousness, and we can either accept the information that comes in, we can originate thought, or we can reject information. So you don't have to, believe everything I say, but if you simply just, reject everything, then you don't really allow yourself the opportunity to really think about the information to see whether or not it can be of use to you and alter your life. So really give yourself an opportunity. But know that out of all the information that comes in, a mind, I don't know, there are about, somebody said 6 billion or whatever bits of information that comes in. We are only capable of, maybe focusing on 200, bits of information at one particular time. Otherwise, our mind would just go haywire with information overload. But we have the ability to accept, reject information, originate thought. and we're hooked up to our senses outside. And so that's why we're so used to, seeing things, and, we want to physically, see it to believe it, right? That's how we're conditioned. Now, the subconscious mind is the feeling part of the mind. And the subconscious mind cannot reject any information. It can only accept whatever is being passed to it from the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is kind of like the guard that stands at the door of the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind creates the, accepts whatever is being passed into it. So there's this guard that stands there. The conscious mind is kind of like the guard. They stand there and they pass only information that, you have these certain beliefs and filters of the world which you see, and then you actually accept whatever is in alignment with what you believe in. And so that gets passed into the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, is a really fascinating place if you think about it. It is the part where it is connected to the infinite. And even though I'm drawing it with the lines here, it really is connected to the infinite. And the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. Or if you actually tell it a lie, you can actually get yourself to believe it over time. So keep that in mind, because that's where you want to actually get your affirmations in here. So if you're affirming an affirmation, let's say you want to be super wealthy, and you want to affirm and say, well, affirmations are really a belief that you want to embody, a new belief that you want to embody. And so if you want to actually to embody a new belief, then you want to make sure that you're not just only saying it and thinking of it in the conscious level. You want to actually embody it into a subconscious level. And how do you know you embody it into subconscious level? It's when you start to believe in it so much that you're feeling it, and your feeling starts to change the vibration that the body is in. So the subconscious, if you get it into the subconscious level, you'll start to change the vibration of the body. And that's where vibration starts to attract to it like-minded thought energies as well. And that's where you have the law of attraction being activated. But the first law to the law of attraction is the law of vibration. And, the secret talks about law of attraction, but it doesn't really, talk about vibration and how it's through the subconscious mind. So this is where the body's vibration changes, and you know that you've actually started to impress that thought into the subconscious mind because you're starting to feel different. And if you really, align yourself with that, or what you say, then you want to make sure that you're actually matching the energy of it. And then so that vibration, starts to send out signals and frequencies. The frequency of your body, the whole cells of your being actually start to change and shift, and that attracts back like energy. There is a law of cause and effect. And law of cause and effect basically says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're sending out energy, which is good energy, right? Which means that you have good thoughts, and good thoughts which are impressed and embodied create good feelings. Then what happens is that you're sending out good energy, and that good energy would attract back simultaneously the equivalent good energy back from the universe. And as we said before, everything is energy. So those could be more abundance, more love, more wealth, more riches, and good vibrations and good energy, vitality in your life. So that's why it's really important that you have a good attitude. And attitude is really good thoughts, good feelings lead to good actions. So that is the attitude that you carry. So your attitude to the world basically attracts the attitude back to you. So whatever you send out comes back to you in the equivalent form. So attitude, Bob talks about attitude, having a good attitude. And if you see somebody with a bad attitude, you are sure to find some bad thoughts in them. So there is a cause and effect that's going on. So if the body is not in a good, in a good way, because the mind basically controls the body, then we trace it back with, okay, what are we thinking? What have we been thinking? And we can then fine tune and change the way that we are. Now, the really interesting thing is most people basically just live through their senses. So they go back, there's news, maybe there's a war going on. And so what happens is that they start to engage in some negative thoughts, fear, maybe some anxiety, and then that affects the feelings in the body, the vibration body changes, and that, sends out some, negative and much more fear, vibrates out. And the, fear obviously changes the way that you do things, decisions that you make. And so, the whole energy and the whole, being of that person shifts. So what you need to do, to really start to create the life that you want is to understand that at the end of the day, you want to be consciously directing the energy that comes in. And you don't want to be living through your senses anymore, right? Because if you live through your senses and you look at the results you get, let's say you are affirming, right? You want to affirm that you want to have like $1 million in the bank account. And this is what happens, affirmations, a lot of affirmations don't work. What happens is that most people say, like, I'm a millionaire, I'm really wealthy, like I earn over $1 million a year, and or maybe I am, a client magnet, or I have, abundance, and I have so much, love, and my beautiful soulmate, and all these things. And what happens is that they're affirming these things that they want, health, vitality, whatever it is, they're affirming. But what happens is that they are living through their senses, and they look at the results. There's zero in the bank account. There's debt. There's no love. There's, I'm sick. And they look at the results, and they basically go, well, that does it. I just looked at my account. It affirms I don't have the money. I've got debt. I've got bills to pay. I don't have the love. I'm sick. So what happens is that whole chain reaction starts to go through the body and creates this negative effect. And that sends out that energy, and that energy attracts back whatever is saying, matches to it, right? Law of cause and effect. Emerson says, law of laws is law of cause and effect. So what do you do in this situation, right? How do you become a master of your life? If you're constantly living through your senses, so you got to stop that. You got to stop that. And you got to understand there is this beautiful law of transmutation energy. And the law of transmutation of energy basically states that there is this process. And this law is just like gravity, as I mentioned, like the law of cause and effect. There is a process for manifesting your life. And if you follow the process, if you follow the order in which it goes, then this is how you create your life. So basically, the order, right? So I'm just going to clean this out a little bit. So the order is, you have to manifest from the spirit and goes to the intellect before it becomes a physical form. So spirit means, as I said before, everything is created twice. First in the mind. Spirit is invisible. The intellect, which is your mind, is also invisible. The physical side is when it actually becomes a physical result in your life. So the result is what we said, like, the money, the love, or the vitality, the health, the abundance, and whatever it is. Like, maybe you want to manifest a house or whatever it is. So the result is only the last stage, right? This is only the last stage. So it's only 1/3, but the rest of it is 2/3 of the whole process. So the invisible side of success means that you've got to focus on the spiritual and intellectual part of it, as well as looking at the physical result. But most people are just simply living through the physical result, which means that they're only living out of 1/3 of the process. So what do? So this is something, this is quite fascinating. We know that we live through our senses. We know that we want to see tangible results before we can actually believe it, right? And faith is actually the belief in the things unseen. So how do you work with this, knowing that this is how we actually live? How do we work with this? So what we need to do is we've got to cut off the senses. We've got to start living subjectively. We've got to start living inside of us, right? Not out in the world. Spend less time out in the world, more time in. And that means looking at, let's say you want to manifest some money, and you look at, okay, right, I know that I operate in such a way that I need some sort of evidence. I need some sort of result, like tangible evidence, so that I can start to stack it up and build my belief system. So you continue to work on the spiritual side, continue to work on tweaking and fine-tuning your attitude, but what we mentioned before, and we go and use the results, which is the actual, what is in the bank account, what is happening around us, and we only just use them as feedback, but we quickly pop back in and we start working on this again, right? So it's kind of like, I think Bob said, it's just kind of like, popping your head out the window, checking what's going on, but quickly going back in and doing the inner work. So what you want to do is, if you're saying, okay, I want to manifest this amount of money. So you want to actually start looking at what evidence is there, going back to your memory bank, going back to maybe, wins that you've had or achievements that you've had since you're really young. And you want to put that together and fill up this, ideal that you want. Because right now, it's just a hollow bag. It's an affirmation, but it's hollow. You're not feeling it. You're just still thinking on a conscious level. And you're probably looking at this, oh my God, like I still have 0 in my bank account. I want to manifest this money. How am I going to bridge the gap? So what you want to do is you're going to fill it up. So you're going to fill it up with evidence and proof. So you go and look at and say, okay, right. How have I, succeeded in the past? In what ways, what kind of evidence can I collect that shows that, I am wealthy, I have abundance? Maybe it's like, looking around and say, okay, what do I have around me? Being grateful for things I have. And really looking at and counting all your blessings, right? I was just talking to one of the speakers in the summit, and she said, she pointed out to me, she said, you've got this rich garden in the backyard. You have such a big family, and your kids are happy. And I realized that, sometimes we define abundance and wealth in such a narrow way. It's what society defines. It's most often it's a dollar sign. But it's really, there's a lot more. Like having your, your health intact, being able to see, being able to, go places and being able to do things, all those things. It's like Og McVino, he said, what would you trade for your eyes? He said, they're worth millions if you really think about it. What would you trade for your legs to take you places? And there's so many things that sometimes we forget. And so we fill this up, we fill this bag up for evidence. And if you're looking for love and you're saying, well, nobody really wants me, But then you go out and you see, oh, somebody smiled at you. And you just go, wow, you know, I'm a lovable person. And, you know, sometimes it's kind of like being really delusional. And you might go, oh my God, that's kind of crazy. But if you look at Elon Musk, you look at Steve Jobs, you look at all these really successful people, they're delusional. They live in this space. They live in their own world. They're busy creating their own world. And they're filling up with evidence, filling out their ideal world with all the bits and pieces since the beginning of time, going back and picking up, oh, I've actually, you know, I created something like when I was like a little kid, and I won an award for it. I'm really loved. I'm really appreciated. I have value to bring to this world. And it's going back, no matter how trivial, how small that evidence is, you've got to stack it up, stack it up. You know, Dr. DeMartini, he creates, he has like folders full of things that he got to achieve, got to create. And he says that, you know, anytime he needs an inspiration, he just basically just goes back and he looks through this folder. Maybe it's client testimonial, maybe it's something that somebody said about his work. And that's what they do. They're creating and stacking up the evidence. And so what happens is that over time, this becomes a new belief. There's so much evidence that they start to believe, you start to believe this. Because you start to believe in so much, what happens is that you're really embodying it, and it becomes much more easier for you to embody. So that affirmation is not only just a hollow shell, you start to really see that I am progressing. Because Earl Nightingale said, the definition of success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And then you can start to write in your affirmations. I am becoming, you know, I am becoming wealthy. I am a client magnet, because the other day a client, you know, expressed and gave me a fantastic testimonial. Or I am a lovable person because somebody smiled at me the other day. And so I am going to attract that soulmate. I am going to become a millionaire. And it sounds crazy, but then that is what you need to do. You need to stack up and create that world in which you live in such a way that becomes really real for you. And what you want to do is you want to focus more on the positives and the things that's working for you in your life. They say, like, you know, sports stars, they have a skew towards the positive. So what happens is that, you know, golfers, they don't focus on what they've missed, but they focus on the times that they've succeeded, and they replay that in their mind constantly. And, you know, even, you know, Michael Jordan, you know, after a game, he only allows himself to sit there and reflect on what didn't work in the game, right? Mistakes they made. Only 1 hour to reflect on that, and the rest he focuses on, and he really, you know, celebrates the wins. So the things that didn't work, he uses it as a feedback, but then he celebrates the wins that he had on the game and what worked. And if you really look at some of the baseball players, I forgot what the statistics are. How many outs did they have and how many innings did they have? The percentage is really very small, but yet they are like, you know, mega stars. But for most people, what happens is that if we've got 10 shots and we only made 1 mistake, we focus on the last one that didn't work, right? The one that didn't work, or the one that got away. We need to become delusional. We need to be crazy enough to believe that we actually succeed and use the wins that we have, no matter how small, no matter how long ago they were, to start to build up the life that we want and build this up, to stack up the evidence and evidence over time, so that we start to believe it, embody it, and that changes the energy and the frequency, because we're starting to know and trust and like the person that we are. We have to stop comparing ourselves to other people, because this is an inner job. This is an internal energy. It's not living from outside, but it's doing the spiritual work, the inner work, the mental work. And that's why they say, mindset is 90% and 20% is in strategy, action only. So mindset is 90%. Mindset is key. So know that if you're doing the work and you're really focusing on writing your goals and you're doing and tweaking and really adjusting, and only you're comparing against how you were yesterday and how you can become better, you focus on this one, on the 2/3 of the spiritual and intellectual work, you know that you're actually 2/3 the way there. 2/3 the way there. You're closer than you think. So don't abandon ship too soon. Don't just sit in here out in the outer world, because 2/3 of the way there. And that's a thing that you need to keep in mind. So I hope this helps you. And what I'll do is just like sit down here for any Q&A that you have. Hope that's helped. How did you find that? Did you have any questions or anything like that? Are you there, Sheldon?
I'm here.
How are you going?
Things are going good. How are you?
Yeah, great. So did
Good.
you have any questions? And Helen, did you have any questions?
Well, I have no questions. I know I should, but I don't.
Yeah. You've watched my presentations a while now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm still following, and I'm still here. Because you're so full of knowledge, it's still blowing, it's still over the top of my head. It's really science stuff. It's
yeah. So yeah. Any new revelations or anything like that? Anything that come up today?
It's all the same. It's all relevant. I don't even have an answer. I just enjoy trying to learn what you're teaching.
Okay, so that's good. You're actually feeling a good vibration out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. So yeah, Helen, do you have any questions or anything?
Well, thank you so much for articulating all that system and explaining it very, very clearly. And I guess, you talk about focusing on the spiritual and the intellectual side before it can manifest. And so maybe, and I guess is the intellectual that encompasses the conscious thought and the subconscious? Is that?
Yeah. So the intellectual is like, really living through your mind.
And it creates the attitude that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so as far as like working the spiritual, what are some examples? Is it like a download or?
Yeah, so
intuition?
So that's probably, I didn't really touch on that much. So working with the spiritual is knowing that we have access to the infinite. We have access to, what you call God, or, infinite intelligence, or whatever religion it is that you call the higher source, right? And knowing that, life supports us, there's the spiritual laws in place that is supporting us. And if we work alongside them in harmony with those laws, then we can create any life that we want. And so there's also mental faculties. So I didn't actually mention that. But when we cut off our senses, it's not like saying that you're living blind. But what it really means is that you start to work and live through your higher mental faculties. So one of the higher mental faculties is intuition and creative imagination. So instead of living from what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, you start to live through a world in which you can create. So Bob says, like, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So it's living in this fantasy kind of world. And, a lot of people say, well, that's not realistic. Well, we don't want to be realistic. We want to be successful. So you need to be delusional sometimes. You need to believe that there is this higher power, that if nothing is created or destroyed, it means that everything that you need, everything that you wanted to create, all the raw materials and everything that you want is already here, and it's evenly present throughout. And there's infinite resources. So if you are wanting something and you can't figure out how for the moment, that's okay. That's not the first point. The first point is make a decision. But know that there is this, there's this source out there. There's this infinite power that created the universe, created us, and we are an expression of it. We actually all come from one mind, and we are just an individualized expression of that mind. And it's all interrelated, and that mind, it knows what we want, and it's here to support us. So it's leaning in and knowing that we have this higher power, and we access that through the subconscious mind. Even though I've drawn a line on the subconscious mind, it really is not, there is no line, right? If you think about it, if you want to understand more about the subconscious mind, Dr. Joseph Murphy has a great book, The Power of Subconscious Mind. And I'll give you an example of how amazing that, sometimes you're thinking, oh my God, I'm not alone. So there's one story, and I love sharing the story. It's like, there's this lady, Joseph Murphy is great with, deciphering dreams and things. And there was one lady, she was about to get married to a gentleman, and the fiance was on the other side of the world. And she kept on having these dreams that there was this huge mountain that was like this huge, like Mount Everest, in front of her and between her and her fiance. And she said, she just couldn't understand it. She said it was just as if they're not meant to be together. There was just something that's blocking them. And so she went to Joseph Murphy and she asked him and said, what does this mean? What's going on? What is God or, infinite trying to tell me? And what happened was that Joseph Murphy said, well, it seems that there's a secret, there's a big secret, or there's something that's keeping you apart. Maybe you go and ask your fiance and demand that he tells you the truth. And so what she did was that she, booked a flight, she went over there, and they both sat down and had a good conversation at the airport. And she said, I keep on having these dreams. You better tell me what's going on. And he said, well, I'm actually gay. The whole marriage is a sham. It's just to show my business partners that I'm normal, and so they can invest in my business. And so they had to call off the wedding. So what Joseph Murphy is saying is that the subconscious mind is connected to the infinite intelligence. It knows everything, all the answers that we want, all the wisdom and all the knowledge, everything that we need, we can access it through subconscious mind. But there is a part of us, which is a conditioning that I talked about, that is sitting in the subconscious mind that also clouds our potential. And it sits there and it basically, we believe that is the world in which we live in, but in fact, it's not the truth. And the work that I do with clients is to help them to separate that from who they are, and so that they can start, utilizing the laws, so they can start creating the world which they want, and not being, driven by the programming which is being put in there. So that's the kind of work I do. And so the spiritual work is having trust and faith that life is here to support you. That there is this, you are part of infinite intelligence. There is this mind, one mind out there that created cosmos. And there are universal laws to help you and support you. And it's getting into alignment and working with the laws. It's like a law of cause and effect. Whatever you send out, you get back in return.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that example, and I guess for me, I guess it's not a passive thing as far as like waiting for, that intuitive hit. I mean, right?
Mm.
Yet at the same time, I think one of my it's my cat. One of my concerns is being able to stay grounded, because I know that you talk about not relying on the sensory input so much. So
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know that I do, for my personal experience, it's like I could live in the that more spiritual and kind of almost live in the mind, and but to a certain extent, but I need to get myself to take action.
Yeah. So the
Um,
grounding is what I talked about, where you basically stack evidence against, like, for your case, right? So even though that's the thing, like, everybody needs, we are so conditioned to want some sort of evidence. I want proof, right? We keep on looking at a bank account. We keep on looking at what is around us, environment, place we're living in, the people we have around us. And so what we need to do is we work with that and we create evidence. We not only celebrate the wins that we have every day and really taking a good look at what we achieve each day, right? But looking for evidence that supports the desire that we want, that we are progressing and moving towards that. So we can take stock of evidence from the past, or when we're young, or whenever we had wins, or whatever situation is. But then we also create the life we want. We take action, do that, right? But looking for signs each and every day, that is in our favor. Because we're so conditioned to look for what is wrong, what's not going right. Now we're going to grab our head and we're going to turn it towards what is going right, no matter how small it is. And
No,
that's the ground.
yeah, no, that's really important. I need to remind myself to celebrate even the small wins,
Yes.
and keep that vibration higher, and so that I can keep having access to more intuition, and that it doesn't come from like a fear-based mentality.
So what I didn't do in here was talk about the paradigms, and that's a separate workshop altogether. But the paradigms is what you say, like, all those thoughts which kind of grab us and kind of tell us that we can't do something, that the goodness is not for us, or all these feelings that kind of give us this feeling of limitations or inadequacy, right? That is conditioning. So what you need to do is ground yourself in the evidence, so that you and let go of the conditioning, and know that those are just simply thoughts that come in and through us. But then what you're doing now is creating a new belief, a new thought through the affirmations, so that this energy that flows through you has a new pathway to go to. Because the old thoughts, the old conditioning, like maybe you're saying, well, those good things never happen, or like, I'm going to be alone, or, and all these things. Those are old thoughts that what we're doing consciously now is saying, I don't want those thoughts, because I can actually choose to change it now. So these are the new thoughts, and I'm going to go and take action, and I'm going to ground myself and look at little crumbs and bits and pieces that are telling me that I'm going in the right direction. So that's what we're doing. We're reprogramming, consciously reprogramming ourselves, but we are taking action at the same time. We're creating these, we're sitting there and you listen to the quiet voice, and know that the conditioning voice is the ego, whatever it is, does come in all the time. But then we're choosing consciously to create a new pathway.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take action, and sometimes we need to go and tap in the spiritual realm and say that I'm going to have faith. I know that whenever I'm going to step and take action, if I have faith, the new block, the new, stepping stone is going to appear. You have to go and take that action. Sometimes it's like you don't see anything that's in front of you. Sometimes you just got to make the decision and know that life is going to be created around that new step. And that's how you create your reality. There needs a faith. You need that faith as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, so thanks so much for being here, and I'll pop the recording in. So basically, I work with women and some men who feel like they may be stuck in this certain loop, or maybe they want to create something, but they've been taking action and they can't seem to get the results they want. And they know it's not the strategy work or anything like that, but it's more of the mindset. Maybe it's to get out of the story, or maybe it's had some trauma in the past, and it's created some sort of box in which they want to get out of and start to really unwrap and unlock a lot more of their potential going forward. So that's who I work with, and I take them through programs called Thinking Results. And Thinking Results is Bob's signature transformation program. And it's really going through all these steps and layering upon layering and building up a new identity for yourself. Because that's what we're doing. As we're changing and shifting our attitude, we are leaving behind that conditioning and creating a new identity, a new self-image, and building up awareness as we go. And so we understand that we are really in control of the destiny that we want to create. And we'll go through all these stick posts and everything, and it's a beautiful process of involvement and creation at the same time. So if you're interested in that, we'll be booking the call to talk a bit more, and happy to go through your situation and see how I can actually give you some insights and what you could do. It's no obligation call, and to discuss a bit more. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining me, and I'll pop a call for the discovery call or email you out the recording as well.